Alright, today we're going to be looking at what kills billionaires. And first we'll look at Chan Yun-chung, the world's oldest living billionaire from Singapore. And he's either 101 or 102. I couldn't actually find his birthday. He attributes his old age mostly to psychological factors, especially in the way that he handles stress, his work ethic, his business abilities, and coping with tough decisions, and so on. And we can see that billionaires are interested in longevity. They are investing in it. We can see here Bezos, the world's richest man, is investing in cancer research and cancer treatment. That first company, Grail, is focused on detecting cancer in biofluids. The second company there, Juno Therapeutics, has a much more complicated approach. So they aim to rewire the immune system, and they do point out that we have not had success with chemotherapy, radiation, and transplants. So they take T cells out when they genetically engineer them and then put them back in the body. T cells are made in the thymus, T for thymus. So it's our assumption under the holistic principle that we should support the function of the thymus, and it could even be said to be the key to having a healthy, functioning immune system. Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, has donated a lot of money to research for Parkinson's, and of course these institutions do not know what causes Parkinson's, and they have made no progress in eradicating it. And Sergey, with his $6 billion, is concerned about a gene mutation that leaves him susceptible to Parkinson's disease. Peter Thiel's another billionaire, co-founder of PayPal. He's invested heavily as well in genetics and research, biotech research. So I'm just saying because these guys are smart guys, right? They've achieved a high level of success, and they're obviously capable of higher level thinking. And this is what a lot of the smartest minds alive today are concerned about: genetics and research and testing. So it's just over 600 billionaires in the US in 2019, and it's just over 2,600 worldwide. David Koch was worth $48 billion when he died in 2019 of cancer, and that's good. He beat the American average. The American average is 78.87 in 2019. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1992, and then they did give him radiation and chemotherapy and hormone therapy, but the cancer repeatedly returned. So they kept him alive for 17 years, but he was unsuccessfully treated by the medical establishment. But he was very philanthropic here, and he donated a lot of money to medical research here in hospitals, and this is especially because in 1991 he was involved in a plane crash which he survived, and he said gave him kind of a new lease on life. And he actually donated enormous amounts of money to medical research. On this list here, he's got $395 million to medical research causes and institutions between 1998 and 2012. Here he contributed $41 million, $20 million to Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore, $100 million to Massachusetts Institute of Technology for the construction of a 350,000 square foot research and technology facility, $185 million more to MIT, $15 million to the New York Presbyterian Hospital, Weill Cornell Medical Center. If you add all this up here, it gets pretty steep. He's got a $2 billion campaign here in 2019 for the renovation and infrastructure of 5 hospitals. Ross Perot made it to 89. He had $4 billion when he died. He died of leukemia. And these are just deaths from 2019. This is Chris Klein. He died in a helicopter crash. Barry Sherman and his wife were both strangled to death. V.G. Siddhartha, coffee billionaire from India, was 59 years old when he committed suicide in 2019. Lucio Tan, the son of a Filipino billionaire, died while playing basketball. He was 53 years old. I'll put the link in the description to the athlete's video explaining more about heart death or sudden death during athletics. Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft, was worth $20 billion when he died at 65 years old of lymphoma cancer. Steve Jobs was 56, worth about $10 billion when he died also of cancer. Now you notice that these guys can afford the best treatment out there, and they do all seem to seek conventional medical treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, and other drug-based therapies. This Filipino billionaire died at 93. It doesn't list his cause of death, but it's good he made it to 93, and he died in 2019. In 2017, the world's richest woman at the time, Lillian Bettencourt, dies at 94 years old. She made it, but she was declining in health for many years before the end, and they say she was suffering with dementia. And she reportedly died of Alzheimer's disease, so we can assume that she was taking her doctor's advice and taking cholesterol-lowering statin drugs, and or a cholesterol-restricted diet, which is not typical for France actually. They're known for having a very high-fat diet. Ann Chambers made it to 100. She died this year, January 2020, and she had $17 billion. Now, it doesn't really give us much information on their overall health or how they were raised and what conditions, what nutritional conditions, and it just said that Ann Chambers died of natural causes. Now, Forbes is saying here that the richest people live 14.6 years longer than the lowest 1%, which isn't really fair in my opinion. I do think we should be comparing them against the average, and in 2005, the last most reliable count that I have seen, the average was 78 years old for a billionaire. And in 2005, the average cheeseburger eating American lived to 77.5 years. And they're saying the rich do live longer now than they did back then, and they say that's because they have healthier diets, better healthcare, more immediate access to emergency healthcare, and they live in safer neighborhoods and avoid hazardous careers and activities. Now, I don't know how true that is. I'm suspecting that the averages are being pulled up by a lot of the billionaires who were born 100 years ago, 90 years ago, and they were raised in a nutritionally different landscape. This is before the widespread use of pesticides, so allowing the plants to absorb whatever nutrients are in the soil. I'm assuming also still the widespread use of wood ash, even though electricity had been in for a while. And I'm assuming that anybody who's dying now, especially if they're over 60 years old, did not receive as many vaccines or prescription drugs as when they were a kid. I'm also going to assume that they ate eggs and potatoes and real food compared to Pop-Tarts and Doritos and Pepsi. And we really don't know how long the younger generation of billionaires today will live. So to me, it's not that strong of a case that money really contributes that heavily to longevity. This is the oldest confirmed person on record, Jean Calment. Died at 122, but she smoked after meals until she was 117. She didn't have any particular health routine, though she did cycle until her 100th birthday. Sarah Naus was born in a coal mining town, lived 119 years. The world's oldest person today in 2020 is Kane Tanaka of Japan. She's 117. She's not looking too great though, and apparently she does enjoy sweets and soda and coffee every day. It does also say nutritional drinks, but I'm not quite sure what that means. But I assume again that she was raised in a nutritionally different landscape in Japan, especially with all the seafood around and the sea moss, and potentially even using the sea moss as fuel for cooking and heating in a wood stove, and those ashes, those plant-derived minerals would make their way into their diet. And we're bringing all this up because the places and the people that seem to live the longest seem to really have no connection with money or high-tech medicine or gene therapy or stem cells or surgeries or drugs or really even doctors. The longest of populations seem to be scattered all over the world, and again with no connection to money. Their commonalities are mostly lower calorie, higher antioxidant, higher nutrition overall, especially with the micronutrients, the minerals, vitamins, amino acids, essential fatty acids, and minimal or no what we would consider junk food. So my conjecture here is that billionaires are actually being killed more likely by their doctors and by treatment of cancers than of anything else. And they would probably live longer as a whole if they stopped paying for expensive medical treatment and finding the best doctors, who of course invariably don't have anything extra to offer them. Doctors, medical doctors of any kind for a poor person or a rich person only have tests, drugs, and surgery to offer. Meanwhile, these problems that these people are dying of, if they have cancer especially, these are nutritional problems. And we don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. We can look at the longest lived people and we can see their commonalities, especially nutritionally, and it's very cost effective to supplement an individual and to eat good food, real food, non-processed food, avoiding the things that can kill us the most, the oxidized free radicals in oils, fried food, processed meat, well-done red meat, burnt animal fats, charred food of any kind. And of course, billionaires can afford easily to supplement with all the known essential nutrients, including the 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 2 to 3 essential fatty acids. And they can also go overboard on the antioxidants, which would be one of the most beneficial things for anybody to boost. And I understand it's hard to separate billionaires from modern medicine. Billionaires essentially created modern medicine with the Flexner Report, and that basically outlawed other schools of medicine, competing schools of medicine, and the billionaires themselves through the Carnegie Foundation, and John Rockefeller himself donated heavily to create what is essentially the medical establishment with the medical schools and the regulatory boards. And of course, the medicine business is big business, and unfortunately for our world's billionaires, they tend to take their own medicine. And the lesson for us is that's not what we need for longevity.